What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to an episode of the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. I'm Sam to bring you part two of our multi-part series where I break down these the Seahawks position groups. Part one was released a couple days ago. That was quarterbacks and running backs. Today we'll be doing wide receivers and tight ends. Before we hop in, thank you very much to KJ Wright. Congratulations, retiring one-day contract with the Seahawks. Not really going to be doing a video on that. It's not huge news that affects the team directly, but it's pretty cool Seahawks history nonetheless. I think he should be in the Ring of Honor because he's just that good, that underrated. Anyways, today we'll be hopping into part two with wide receivers and tight ends. Let's get started at the wide receiver group. There are currently a load of wide receivers on the roster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 on the team. Only one is only two are 30, and then everybody else is 26 and under. So it's a fairly young wide receiving core, headlined by DK Metcalf entering his fourth season last year, just under 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns on 75 receptions, career high in touchdowns last year. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who is a force. And I think you all, if you all know what's going on, the Seahawks currently are trying to negotiate a contract with him. Yesterday, he actually reported training camp as expected, but still pretty important news nonetheless. So I'm looking forward to seeing DK to Seahawks jersey, hopefully for a long time in the near future. DK is just that guy. He's just that good. And frankly, I think that if soon, I would say in the next 2 weeks, we'll probably see a contract that falls along the lines of a 4 or 5 year deal with $25 million annual. But that's just the headliner coming in as his compatriot. Almost like we're watching Twins here, where DK plays Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then there's Danny DeVito, who is going to be played by Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett is a little man, at least compared to DK. He's 5'10", 182. About to enter his 8th season already. I feel like an old man because I remember watching his rookie season, thinking this guy's going to be a dog. It's about to be his 8th season in the league, coming off his 3rd straight 1,000-yard season. Last year, 73 receptions, 1,175 yards, 8 touchdowns, led the Seahawks in receiving yards last year. I mean, this guy is about as good as consistency can be. The guy is usually healthy. He's usually catching every pass you throw to him. He has very few drops, and he's a guy who's kind of the opposite of DK. DK's a personality. You'll see him throw helmets on the sideline if the game's not going their way, and he'll talk some smack if he gets a nice catch. Tyler Lockett ain't like that. He's kind of a more quiet, silent assassin, if you will. Catch a touchdown, throw it to him. I mean, as it goes for wide receiver duos in the NFL, Tyler Lockett and DK is about as good as you'll find for a lot of these teams. Moving to his wide receiver 3, which is going to be a bit of a mystery. I think there's 3 legitimate contenders for the wide receiver 3 job on the Seahawks, starting with what I would call the leading candidate, Duane Eskridge, last year's 2nd-round pick. Did not play much last year. 10 games, none started. 10 catches for 64 yards and 1 touchdown. Really not impressive. But he did have 59 rushing yards, which is kind of interesting. But once again, really not impressive for a 2nd-round pick, a guy who you were expecting to come in right away and contend and really add to your offense. He's already 25. He's he's missed that time already. So it's gonna be really important for him to show what he can do for the Seahawks team, really. And frankly, I don't know if the job is going to be handed to him like we would all expect him to, because there are 2 other contenders. What I would call the man in 2nd place, Freddy Swain. Freddy Swain, a guy who has been very quietly pretty consistent for the Seahawks. Drafted out of Florida in the 6th round of the 2020 NFL draft, I believe, if my memory serves me correct. Last year, 25 catches for 343 yards, 4 touchdowns. In 8 games started, he was essentially the Seahawks wide receiver 3 last year. Really silently consistent. He can return kicks. He has pretty solid hands. He can run decent routes. He can get open on those little flat routes, and he'll get some good yards after catch. Frankly, I think Freddy Swain isn't getting his fair due from Seahawks fans. I think Freddy Swain is a solid wide receiver. And if he's not your wide receiver 3, he's good depth. And that's what you really need if you want to be a good team in the NFL. You need good depth. You need things that will, if a guy goes down, who's going to step in? Freddy Swain can play in the slot or he can play outside. Frankly, I think Freddy Swain has a really high chance of being the Seahawks wide receiver 3 this year. But then there's the wild card. The oldest receiver on the roster, 32-year-old Marquise Goodwin. Marquise Goodwin will be 32 in the season by November. So during the season, he will turn 32. Drafted 78th overall by the Buffalo Bills in the 2013 NFL Draft. His best season was with the 49ers in 2017, where he had 56 catches, 962 yards, 2 touchdowns. If you're wondering, why is there no touchdowns? Because, if you know football, you know who their quarterback was at that point. Nah, it ain't it. Now, Marquise Goodwin, the one thing that'll really, really stick out to you about Marquise Goodwin is the dude can roll. The dude can friggin' roll. He has legs. I believe he ran in the mid 4.2s at the combine back in the day. Last year played for the Chicago Bears, 20 receptions, 313 yards, 1 touchdown, really nothing much. But the Seahawks are maybe looking to use him as kind of a everything, do-it-all guy. He's fast. He can probably return kicks. He could probably run out of the backfield. He can take a lot of screens. I think that Marquise Goodwin is going to be an interesting ad for the Seahawks team this year. I really don't know what to expect out of him. I don't even know if he'll make the roster, but Marquise Goodwin should be an interesting player on the Seahawks team nonetheless. He'll at least be fun to watch in the preseason, be fun to watch in camp. I've seen videos of Drew Lock throwing some passes to him. Maybe that'll form a little bit of a connection there. But Marquise Goodwin is definitely a name to look at. And as we kind of go down the list, we have Kevin Kassis, a wide receiver out of Montana State. There's not a Pro Football Reference thing on him. I believe he was signed fairly later after the draft. Like, he wasn't like a UDFA. He had to wait a bit, and then the Seahawks picked him up in like May or June or something like that. I do remember when he was signed. 6 foot 202. Can't really give you his college stats at the moment, but I'll pull those up. Now, obviously, the first thing that you really notice about Kevin Kassis is that Montana State, thing. It's really not impressive. Last year, for Montana State, that's interesting. The last time he played was 2019. So he must have been up already. But his last collegiate season at Montana State, anyways, was .871 yards. Okay, I found it. 871 yards, 6 touchdowns, 67 receptions. I wouldn't expect much out of Kevin Kassis. He might just be a body. Sorry, Kevin. You might just be a body to get through that 90-man roster. He's going to be fighting for a job in the preseason. And you get to another guy who seems like he's been on the fringe for a while. It's going to be Aaron Fuller. He actually played in a game last year. Did not have a single reception. But from Lovejoy, Texas, undrafted out of the University of Washington. This guy has made some really impressive catches during mock games, during training camp. I would not be surprised to see his name on the final roster once he's there. Could have some good jump ball, maybe Hail Mary ability if you need to bring him on. But he's got hands. He does have hands. Just look up some Aaron Fuller highlights. Next, Penny Hart. Penny Hart's 26 out of Georgia State, undrafted. He's had some play time. Had 1 catch for 3 yards in 2020, and then in 2021, 7 catches for 59 yards, no touchdowns. Penny Hart is a guy who seems to always be on the team, but never really does anything. He's a little bit fast. He's a little bit shifty. Once again, he's gonna be another guy who's gonna be battling for a camp spot or a spot on the roster in the preseason and in camp. Moving on, we have a guy who I've never heard of. He's a rookie, Deantez Alexander. He's 26 years old. I don't know how you're a rookie if you're 26 years old. Let me see what is up with Deantez Alexander. Let me check out who this guy is. He's 6'1". He is 6'1", 203. Played in 2018 for the Detroit Lions. Played for Franklin, which is a Division III school. And this guy has gotten a chance to be has gotten a second chance in the NFL. He came out in 2018, was an undrafted player out of Division III, and then the Seahawks picked him up after he hadn't played in 4 years. Once again, you best believe this is another guy who's fighting for a roster spot in the preseason and in camp. He's probably a long shot, but he'll give it his all. And then we have Cade Johnson. This is a guy who I was very high on last year out of South Dakota State. 24 years old, undrafted. I thought that he was very good. I liked his tape as a slot receiver. I liked his route running. I liked his hands. Didn't get drafted. Fell to us as UDFA. I was very excited. Ended up really not playing much last year. So I'm definitely going to see how that works out. It's going to be interesting to see because Cade could be a dark horse for that wide receiver 3 spot. And then finally, we have Cody Thompson, a guy who's also come up. He played in 5 games last year, had 1 fumble recovery. And he also had a tackle. He's a special teams player. 6'2", 205 out of Toledo. This guy has always been one of the guys you see those reports about where it's, oh, he's surprised in camp, or he's shown a lot in camp. And, fine. But he's also going to be contending for a roster spot. Really, I think the only locks for this roster, if you look at the wide receivers, are DK, Tyler, Duane Eskridge, and Freddy Swain. I think those are the only 4 guys that you're going to get locks for. And then after that, I think that no one else is safe. I wouldn't be surprised if Marquis Goodwin is cut for a Cade Johnson or something like that. I would not be shocked. So overall, I don't think that they need to add anything for this wide receiver room. If I had to give it a grade, I would say it's a B+. I really like the wide receiver duo of DK and Tyler. After that, I'm not really sure how much I like about this wide receiving room. After DK and Tyler, it really kind of gets weaker. I'm not very confident in any of the potential wide receiver 3 options, in even Eskridge. I'm not very confident in. So I'm going to need some decent stuff in the preseason. But until then, I'm going to give this a B+. Moving on to the tight end room. There are currently 6 tight ends on the roster. Kicking off with the headliner of the group, it is Noah Fant. Noah Fant is a guy who's come on as of late for Denver. He has had 670 yards back-to-back years. Never really had that high touchdown number, only 3 and 4 touchdowns. Last year had 68 receptions for 670 yards, 4 touchdowns. Noah Fant obviously acquired in the Russell Wilson trade. This is a guy that the Seahawks are going to be very reliant on this year. Noah Fant, former first-round pick, they said that they were going to pick him when the Broncos literally picked him 1 pick before them. They said they had his name on the card. They were ready to turn it in, and then the Broncos made the pick. So maybe they like him. Maybe they have plans for him. Hopefully that Shane Waldron Rams-inspired offense will get the tight ends going. He's a really good receiving tight end. I'm looking forward to seeing what could happen out of that and what he could do for this team in the future. Noah Fant's a very intriguing prospect, very athletic, 6'4", 249, good reliant, solid hands. And that connection with Drew Lock might be interesting, especially if Drew Lock starts. Moving on to the backup, Will Dissly. Obviously drafted by the Seahawks 4 years ago. And he's had some years where, like, oh man, Will Dissly, look at this freaking guy. He's going crazy. And then he gets hurt. And it's happened all the time. And then I feel like 2020 was the first year. 2020 and 2021 were the first years he didn't get hurt much. Like, I really felt that. And then literally he doesn't play well. So you're getting like a Jekyll and Hyde. If he ever plays well, he's going to get hurt. And if he doesn't play well, he's going to be healthy the entire time. So I thought because of that, the Seahawks were going to let him go this offseason. Instead, 3-year, $28 million deal. Money. It's a lot of money. I didn't like the signing then. I still don't like it now. The only really thing I like is that I feel like he's the perfect tight end to pair with Noah Fant, who's a relatively weak blocker. I feel like it's good to pair him with a guy who can block and a guy who can really lock things down for you in the run game. Will Dissly's a solid backup, just not for that cost. Then you have the really intriguing prospect here, Colby Parkinson. Through his career, 7 receptions for 49 yards. 5 of those receptions and 33 of those yards came last year. Big thing about this guy is 6'7", 251, and he's a receiving tight end. He has really good hands, really soft hands, and doesn't drop a lot of passes. I think Colby Parkinson has all the potential in the world, and that's why I thought they were going to let him eat when they let Will Dissly go. Instead, I don't really know what kind of role he has in this team. He was picked in the 4th round a couple of years ago, coming into his 3rd season, never really had a chance. I like him. I really like him as a prospect. I think he's intriguing. I think that he could bring a lot to this offense if he was just used. They haven't really used him, so I'm interested to see how that works out. Then we have the 3 guys who are really going to be fighting for roster spots here. You have Cade Brewer, the tight end out of Texas, 6'2", 238. I'll pull up his numbers right now. I'm not a huge college football guy, but I have heard his name a couple times. 5th-year tight end, 55 career games, 33 career starts. His final collegiate season in 2021 finished with 184 receiving yards, 22 receptions and 3 touchdowns. His size would now. Here's the interesting thing: on Pro Football Focus, it says he's 6'2", 238. On Texas, it says he's 6'4", 243. So let's just average him out at like 6'3", 230. At that size, I'm assuming that he would be a receiving tight end. Most blocking tight ends are really not that small, not that light. I would assume that he's a receiving tight end. Maybe he'll bring some stuff in the preseason, but once again, he's going to be really fighting for a roster spot as a UDFA this preseason. Tyler Mabry, last year played in 6 games, absolutely did not record a stat. Came out of Maryland as a UDFA. Now, this guy really isn't very fast. He does have good hands. He made a few nice catches last year in training camp. I actually had a tweet about that was liked by, out of all people, Vikings wide receiver KJ Osborne. That's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what he'll add. He's not very fast, but he's a receiving tight end, which is interesting. So I'm just going to see what he can bring to this team. I'm not very sure he's going to be fighting for a roster spot. And then finally, the newcomer, a guy who is just signed today, Jake Hausman. Jake Hausman. Tight end, 6'4", 255. I believe he had a roster spot with the Giants. Came out of Ohio State. Let's pull up his stats. He has not had a single stat in NFL history, so we may as well pull up his college stats. In 2020, 2021, 1 reception for 13 yards in 5 games played. Not really sure what he does. I really don't know what he does. Oh, I guess he's a long snapper. It says he's a starter on the punt unit. Most of the times, long snappers are listed as tight ends. He might be a long snapper. Not very sure, but the lack of receiving statistics would seem to suggest that he's a long snapper, which is interesting because Tyler Ott is a good long snapper. So yeah, I don't know. We're gonna see what happens there. And that's gonna wrap up the tight end room. Now, as I would give this a grade, I would give it a B minus. Nothing really elite, but I think that there's some talented guys in here that could get you some good statistics and really contribute a lot for this offense, especially Noah Fant. After Noah Fant, don't really love Will Dissly. Colby Parkinson is intriguing but unproven. I'm fine giving this group a B minus. I think it's fine. I don't think it's gonna be bad. I think it's gonna be all right. And I guess at the end of the day, that's really gonna be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay tuned. Training camp starts very soon. We'll have observations and notes, all that good stuff coming out soon. Until then, subscribe, leave a like, ring that bell, leave a comment with your thoughts in the description below, or the description in the comments below. It's been a long day. And as always, get it wherever you get your podcasts. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.